yeah, here we are. And what I wanted to do was I wanted to discuss like some of my thoughts and sort of insights on it, and hopefully you guys can come back and give me some energy and we can exchange a bit of energy. Because I think it's a really important topic, not just, you know, for gossip's sake, but I think there are really some deeper things going on here that are really interesting. And I don't hear a lot of people saying this when you go online and you've watched all the videos, the memes, and you've read all the comments, what so and so says, what this person says, and yeah, it's content for days, isn't it? So and there's a reason for that, but I'll get to that in the end. But okay, so basically a couple of days ago at the Oscars, you know, basically Chris Rock is making a joke about Jada Pinkett's hair. Will Smith gets offended. Well, she gets offended, and ultimately Will Smith gets offended because Jada Pinkett has alopecia, which is like a disease where your hair basically doesn't grow. So Will Smith is really offended by this. He then proceeds to go to the stage to attack Chris Rock and gives him a big slap, and then walks off the stage as if, yeah, that was gangster, and then sits down and kind of just carried on with the show. Chris Rock is really shocked. Chris Rock is rocked. And then he kind of like puts himself together, continues with his piece of and his part in the show by introducing the show. He's basically doing the intro to the Oscars, and yeah, he leaves the stage, and that was the last we see of Chris Rock. So we can break this down in so many ways, but let's first start with Will Smith. Okay, let's start with Will Smith. Will Smith is obviously offended when he hears the joke, but the funny thing is that when the cameras first pan on him, he's actually laughing. So he enjoys the joke at first, but then because the cameras then move away from Will back onto Chris Rock. And as soon as that happens, something happens then, which is also an interesting point. Like, doesn't anyone have any footage of what they were doing in that moment? Because there's a moment between when he was laughing and then it panned to Chris Rock and then he was like, what? But then there's no camera pointing at Jada Pinkett Smith. None. Like that, no one had, all the cameras you can imagine that are at the Oscars, not one of them was focused on Jada Pinkett Smith at that point. How is that possible? Was there only 2 cameras in the room? Like, I can't believe that. There must have been cameras everywhere, So that's the other odd thing. There's a lot of odd things, but that's odd fact number 1. So from his perspective, what people are making up is that he looked at his wife. His wife was like, and then he was like, "Rah, rah, rah," and he went up there and he thought, you know what? Let me give this guy a slap because that's just totally out of order, which is a huge overreaction and a huge overreach by Will Smith, isn't it? I mean, how you can go from 0 to 100 just like that. It's not even as though, I mean, I think that was be something even Suge Knight would be proud of that one. Like, even Tupac, which is a name that is interesting, but we'll talk about him when we talk about Jada, okay? But okay, so that's pretty gangster, apparently. But to be fair, I don't think it was gangster. Number one, even if, like, okay, you could say, oh, well, that was brave of him to get up on there and slap. But why are you slapping? If I'm going to get up on stage at the Oscars when the world is watching, I'm going to punch you. I'm not going to slap you. You know what I mean? He slapped like a girl as well. It was not very hard. Like, it was like, he didn't even knock him over, and he was literally stood there like, right here, and he still couldn't knock him over. So it was a very hard slap. But yeah, so why would he do that? Like, it's totally strange for him to overreact like that. People say, well, he's got mental health problems, blah, 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 blah. Excuses. But at the end of the day, it's a huge fail for him because, like, you lost it. On the biggest night of your life, you basically lost it. Not only for him, but also for everyone who was tied to that film. And it's interesting, that point as well, because he basically took the focus off that film. And not only that, but the film that he was nominated for basically now is, he could really go down in ratings. Like, people might not want to watch that film anymore. Equally, it could go the other way. People might be like, "Ooh, I really want to watch that movie now." The crazy people out there. But I think, for the most part, I think people will just kind of be like, "Well, I'm not sure about Will Smith anymore," which is whatever. It doesn't matter to him anyway. He's super rich, obviously. It doesn't matter. But he's let down people who were associated with that film, including the Williams sisters and their dad. He's kind of ruined their legacy a little bit there, because he's saying he's representing King Richard, and it wasn't a very good representation if that was the way King Richard was. So, on to Jada Pinkett Smith. Now, she was obviously offended because of her hair and her condition, and she's like, oh man, again, he's gonna have a go at me. And I think there's a bit of history here, because obviously, I think in previous Oscars, Will and Jada have boycotted, and Chris Rock was like, dissing them on stage. He told a few jokes then, so maybe there's some kind of like, well, I remember what you said back then, feeling going on. But still, it's still an overreach. It's still an overreaction. Now, obviously, we know, I don't know, well, I won't assume that you know, but let me give you a little story. This isn't a gossip channel, by the way, but I'm just trying to inform so everyone understands the situation. So basically what happened was, a couple of months, no, maybe a year ago, something like that, the family, the Smith family came out with they've been saying that they've had problems in their marriage, and they've sort of given up on the traditional idea of marriage, and that, they're going to have an open relationship. Now, let me stop right there. Now, they have been archetyped as the perfect black family. Now, notice how the example they give you of the perfect black family is not even the perfect black family. And I'm not crying victim or racism here, but I think that there are agendas going on for all races, and I think in particular for black people, it's this idea that we have all these broken families, and that we can't really manage family, and that we're kind of a little bit dysfunctional. And that's a stereotype that's perpetuated within the media, because that's what they want us to be. That's what they want us to think. They want us to give up hope of having a family in a normal sense. So I do feel like that. It's not that it's necessarily just black people. There's lots of stereotypes directed towards many other races, but I think in particular with black people, it's that one. It's the idea that black family is struggling, and that, you know, there's lots of violence going on with black people. They're a bit uncontrollable. They're a bit animalistic, you know, a bit clowns going on, which then ties into this whole story as well. But it's interesting how this family that they've presented to us, they give us these heroes. We don't ask for them. These aren't heroes that we've selected. These heroes are people that Hollywood have uplifted to be who they are. And then they throw them in front of our faces. We watch them crumble, and that becomes our story. But that ties into the ending to the video. So basically, Jada and Will, they've had all these problems. They've got an open relationship now. Well, they decided that then, and then all this stuff came out about their relationship. She'd been cheating and she'd been doing all this stuff as a woman, which is totally unacceptable. And most black people know it's totally unacceptable. But hey, you know, this is what they give us as their story. And, you know, she's sort of... I know that young people watch this as well, so I have to be careful with what I say, but there's dysfunction in the family. Let's just say it like that, because I don't want to go too deep into those things, because it's not really that kind of channel. It's kind of a family channel, and basically their marriage stories kind of crumbled a bit. And Jada seems to be this boss in a relationship, which points to the reason why when she looked at him, he turned around and then proceeded to slap Chris Rock. So you can tell that, you know, this is a story of a man. This is a story all about how my life got turned right upside down. I married a girl called Jacob. Anyway, we know the story, innit? So this is the ridiculous show that they give to us. And so you've got Jada now provoking Will to then, you know, defend her honor, and there's this thing where some people feel that this was actually defending all women around the world, and some women are like, oh wow, I wish my man defended me like that. And it's like, oh my god, it's like, what planet are you on? But wow, what can you say? I mean, you know, there's nothing masculine about what he did at all. He didn't even punch him, he slapped him, you know, so that tells you everything you need to know. So let's get on to Chris Rock now. Okay, Chris Rock, he's obviously been shaken, he's really upset, but he gets on with the show. He's like a true gent. He's like the hero of the story. He's like, yes, you know, this is how black men should be. And I kind of bought into that for a long time. And then after a while, I was like, yeah, but even if you did do all that afterwards, you would still kind of check him, wouldn't you? You'd still go to him and be like, even if you got to have the fight in the car park or at the party next or whatever, even if it's the next day, like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know, if he didn't want to tarnish the awards or whatever, but it doesn't matter. It's already happened now. At the end of the day, you need to get a resolution as to why that just happened. But he didn't do any of that. He kind of just went off stage and sort of went home and cried almost. Like, he went into the character of Everybody Hates Chris, didn't he? He's like that kid that just goes home and cries in the corner, like, you know. And it's like, well, that's really interesting. Why is he playing that character? He's a movie star now. He's a, you know, world famous comedian. He doesn't need to be the victim, like, kid that gets bullied. He doesn't need to be that anymore. He can stand up for himself. He's got wife, kids. Like, what kind of dad are you going to come home to your family after something like that's happened and you've not done anything about it? You're going to basically go on tour and just chill. You know, it's like, you just been absolutely embarrassed. And even if he did roast him on stage or whatever in the future, that's not justifiable. He put his hands on you. It's not about getting on stage. It's about going to him face to face and being like, yo, what's happening? You know what I mean? Even if it's not to fight, it's at least to get an answer. It's your own pride. You know what I mean? It's like, if that happened to me, I would either go and basically, go looking for Will, or I would be like, I'm suing you. You're going to pay me badly. Like, I'm going to sue you. You know what I mean? And that wouldn't be a bad thing. That would teach the world, not only, Will Smith, but also the world, that you can't do that. There's consequences. And that would be a powerful thing for black people to learn. But no, you're going to learn about not snitching and how to be a coward, basically, and how to be arrogant and selfish. That's what they've taught us. That's their lessons. That's their legacy to black people. How to be arrogant in the case of Will Smith, and how to be a coward in the case of Chris Rock. Basically, that's what their legacy is, and that's why. Which brings me on to the next point as to why we can't have these people as heroes. These are not heroes. These are people put in place by Hollywood that you look up to because, how do you not? Like, you grew up with this person. Will Smith was that guy from Fresh Prince, and there's all this fantasy and romance. You've invested time, effort, energy into this person, and then suddenly it's like the bowl breaks, everything's broken, it's smashed. You're like, what happened? And it's hard to not be emotionally invested in it, because this person meant so much to so many people. And just, and that's why it brings us onto a higher level of conversation, which is, this is the big distraction, isn't it? We've had the pandemic. We've had all those 2 years of chaos going on around the world, where we were forced to watch the news, or felt, compelled to watch the news, because we needed to know what was happening and whatnot. That's finished now. So now it's the war in Ukraine. So now we're focusing on Ukraine. Everything's Ukraine. And shout out to all Ukrainians. Love you, But I think even some Ukrainians must think to themselves, like, hang on a minute, why is all this focus on us when there's so many wars going on around the world, and there has been for a long time? Why are we giving aid to Ukraine, and yet people are struggling to pay bills here? Soon there's going to be aid needed for people in this country because they can't afford their energy bills, but yet we're being compelled to give money to Ukraine and give money to these other countries for no reason whatsoever, because you don't really know what they're doing with the money. There's no promise, and that's the problem with this charity thing now. It's like, well, people give money to these causes, whether it's the NHS, or whether it's like a war in Ukraine, or whether it's Iraq, or it's Africa, or it's wherever, but you don't know what is happening to this money. From what I understand, most of the aid is weapons. So basically, you're donating Scud missiles, grenades and rockets and bazookas to the Ukrainians. That's what your money's going to. From what I understand, I'm not saying that as a fact, but from what I understand, there's a lot of military aid being given, So the point is that, there's a lot going on here, and there's a lot of distractions. And then now we've got this distraction, which is Hollywood, shock, horror. Watch this. Watch millions of videos as everyone reacts to the same thing. And we hear that slap. And it's interesting how they gave it that title, the slap that was heard all around the world. It's almost like the movies, isn't it? It's like they gave the movie a title, the slap that's heard all around the world. In other words, everyone was meant to hear about this and know about this and, you know, get into this. So my point is people, don't be distracted. This is another circus, and these guys are actors. And people will say, well, oh, Will Smith looked really angry. He looked really... Yeah, that's why he's getting an Oscar, because he's actually a really good actor, and he knows how to act, you know. And I know that most people will be like, nah, man, it was real, because, you know, why would he want to do that? And yeah, but what you don't understand is that these people are on a payroll. You know, regardless of what people think on the outside, they're still going to get their money, you know, because, you know, it's not controlled by you necessarily. It's controlled by them, their money. So as long as they do their role or whatever they're supposed to do to get people's attention, then it doesn't matter. They're still going to get their money. Chris Rock, his tour is going to be sold out, like, no doubt. Like, people are going to be, you know, the tickets went up in price, tripled. So he's winning already. Will Smith, he'll probably come out with another... They're going to spin this. They're going to have their own say. They're going to do a Red Table Talk, which is Jada Pinkett's podcast. They're going to talk about it all, and everyone's going to watch it, because everyone's going to be like, what was he thinking about this slap? You know, so everyone's going to be tuned in. So they ain't losing. They're you know, I mean, I think people will wake up more, because I think people will start to understand what's going on in Hollywood more. But they're not anticipating that. They're just looking at the clicks and the views of what they're doing and what they're going to say next, and their next move everyone is watching. So they're looking at that, and they're looking at the rewards for that. But my point being is that, you know, for years Hollywood has given us these role models, especially as black people. We have these role models like Will Smith, Michael Jackson. You could go back a long way. I mean, you know, I struggle personally to find anyone's name to really... I mean, we talk about Martin Luther King, and, you know, there have been heroes out there, but none of them have been perfect. But I suppose... who is perfect? You could argue that as well. But I think the role models that we have now as black people, it's like our queen is Beyonce and our king is like Jay-Z, you know? Like, these are our role models. Like, you know, it's just ridiculous. It can't be like that, you know what I mean? And as a people, we have to move above these role models and show real black excellence, because there's a lot of people that will talk about these people as black excellence, and I don't think they represent... They're very talented, but I don't think they represent true black excellence. And I think there's a lot of black families out there that don't have weird relationships and whatnot, and I think it's up to us to show that. It's up to us to shine that light. And that's what we try and do on this channel, is we try and show our lifestyles and our perspective, not just as a black couple, but as a couple, as people who, you know, because families is hard to see in general on TV, isn't it? Just normal families, you know, it's very hard to see. So we try and put that out there. But yeah, that's my take. And I just want to see us evolve and move beyond these role models, because I don't think that they're serving us. I don't think they've got our interests at heart. I think that it's very selfish, Hollywood. I think most of the music industry is unlistenable these days. It's full of F words and N words, but yet we're told that, you know, racism is bad, but yet if you listen to black music, it particularly hip hop, there's a lot of N words and whatnot, and we need to evolve from that. And I want to do more videos like this. So if you've enjoyed it, give me a thumbs up, give me a comment on what you think. I don't think what I think is completely right. I was just giving my opinion. But you let me know what you think as well. I hope you've enjoyed it. And I will speak to you very soon.